Go ahead.
My name is Brandon. The topic I chose was the school perpetuate gender bias. The reason I chose this topic was because I was interested to see if schools did favor a particular gender. So to start off, my topic is questioning of whether or not schools favor a certain gender. In the text, it does mention a little bit how people use particular perceptions of people, and because of their attitude or how they look. This can influence how schools treat a particular gender because males and females have different attitudes and they look differently, and this can lead to a bias. So when I started research on this topic, I found a lot more supporting evidence than I was surprised actually, because I would think there would be no bias at all. But I found out there was a bias, so I found a lot more supporting than refuting. I really found no refuting at all. So to start off my support, I got an article off the internet that I found that was really interesting. It starts off, and the title of the article is "Are Girls Victims of Gender Bias in Our Nation's Schools?" This reference supports my question. It states that girls are victims of gender bias in our nation's schools. At younger ages, boys and girls are both equal. At younger ages, they're the same, but when you get to high school, boys pass up girls in graduation standards, and girls lead to fall behind more likely than boys. Girls are called on less in class, and guys are more like, schools pay attention more to guys, for example, in sports. If you ever notice in guy sports how it's always at the top, and it's always like, like sports and boys is always in college and high school is more important. Even though the girls team is really good, it's not going to be as important as guys. So right there, that showed me that it's a bias against girls, because even if you have a sports team that have the same level of excellence, the boys will always be held to a higher standard because they're boys, and girls will be mistreated and not recognized as much if they do good. So that was my first thing that really pointed out to me why there's a bias against girls in schools. Not just sports, but how in class they're called on less and boys are called on. My next reference that I used to support was a study at universities in Israel. This study showed that genders getting accepted into the university, one major component of getting accepted into the university was a particular standardized test score. For example, let's say there's a male and a female with the same score, with on a test score, let's say it's out of 100. Let's say they both get a 90. In the university in Israel, boys would more likely to get accepted than girls, even if they have the same test score. And after reading this reference, it really opened my eyes up, because it showed that guys were biased, schools were biased towards guys and against girls, because why would a guy get accepted with the same test score as a girl and now opposed to a girl not being accepted? And that really let me know that there was a bias against girls to that. And that was another supporting reference that I had. There was a lot more, but I didn't have obviously time to tell a bunch, but there was many out there that had the same thing, where just guys were, for some reason, it didn't have a particular reason, it's just, since guys are guys, they got treated better than girls did. So that opened up for me. Well, a couple of refuting ones that I did have was, the first piece of refuting research that comes up for me was, I actually used the same reference I used to support, was "Are girls victims of gender bias in Asian schools?" This source helps me refute my research, because as in the reference, as it says that girls and boys are treated equal all the way up to high school, and then when guys come to high school, they are like you said, called upon more in class. But that doesn't mean schools are biased. Doesn't mean schools are biased towards boys, or biased towards boys. Guys, I think in general, guys are more outspoken than girls usually, most of the time. Obviously, there's going to be a girl occasionally that's going to be more outspoken than guys. Most of the time in classrooms, guys tend to ask the question before, because they're more confident about themselves. Girls tend to hold things in and are usually shier on the shyer side, so guys are more outspoken. So that research, I kind of found a loophole in that, because at the same time you can say, yeah, they're biased towards girls, but also you can say guys are just more outspoken than girls, and that's why teachers call them more in class, or maybe, like I said, with the graduation standards. Also, I think graduation standards, teenage pregnancy these days are very, very big. Girls get pregnant at younger ages. When you get pregnant, dropping out of school, usually, not all the time, but at least you're not in public school. You're most likely doing online schooling. So that's another thing I looked into that, because guys don't obviously get pregnant. So usually the only thing that can help them by dropping out is usually drug use or personal problems. But a lot of girls these days are getting pregnant. It's getting worse and worse. And that's another thing that kind of led me to refute the research. My next refuting research was, I kind of used the Greek's textbook for this one, because the Greek's textbook, this topic, obviously gender bias and all perception stuff has to do a lot in our course. And I used the Greek textbook to feed my question because really the textbook doesn't really talk much about how, if like for example, it doesn't talk about how one gender is biased or another. You know, it just really talks about how people, like when they conversate with people, how they by talking to them and looking at them, even if you don't know it, you gain a perception of what, like just from how they look or the attitude. You kind of like see like if you like them or not. Even though you don't even know it, your body just automatically, like if I look at you, okay, if it's something that I agree with or don't agree, just how you look or say or what your attitude is, that can change how I look. But the Grace textbook, that's all it really says. It doesn't really say does the schools have a particular gender. They don't really go into detail. And in my opinion, I mean obviously this is a big topic because we're in school for the first part of our life, you know, so this showed me that schools really didn't think, I mean, like I said, it's this kind of psychological science class. If it was that important, I think they would go into detail why a gender is biased, but so it didn't. So that kind of showed me there wasn't really any major imprints that there was a bias. So in conclusion, my question, I have to say there is gender bias in schools, only because I found a lot more research out there that supports the question. After looking at my reference, there are many studies that show there's gender bias in schools, and especially towards women in particular. The reason I say this, let me go back, like I said, with teams, girls' teams aren't held high as guys' teams. Even girls aren't called to more class just because guys might maybe more outspoken. Girls, I'm sure, raise their hand just as much as guys do. And teacher kind of like, look, even for, it's nothing to do with schools, but look at our president of the United States. We've never had a girl president. Why is that? Because I feel like our country as a whole, and schools are obviously in our country, tend to look at guys more than girls. So girls are kind of held under the radar, especially in schools. So that's what helped me come to my conclusion.